All right, so here's an image of a building. This happens to be the Civic Center in Marin County. It was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. In a previous discussion, you guys were asked to kind of link elements and principles together. Some of you did, some of you didn't. It was with the car shaper video the second time watching it. I want to talk about that a little bit more. If you look at this Frank Lloyd Wright piece, you might be able to see the pointer on the screen down here. I'm looking at the larger arc or larger part of a circle. You can see there's all this repetition in this arch, right? Frank Lloyd Wright has designed this to repeat this curve, and he's done it in 1, 2, 3, and now up here it's a circle, but it's basically 3, 4 different sizes of arcs. All of that top is a circle. So that repetition is definitely rhythm. And then we can talk about how that shape, that repetition of that shape or repetition of that line. So he's creating rhythm by using this line, or creating rhythm by, the repetition is rhythm by shape, right? Also, you can see that those archways some are light, some are dark, so values involved. You know, how does that repetition, how do those shapes act harmoniously with one another? They're all related because they're from a circle. They're parts of a circle. Also, if you look at the shapes that are these bands, right? These bands of the lighter value that are solid walls, positive space, whereas those arches kind of denote negative space. Those bands are shapes. And how is that upper shape different than the two lower shapes, right? That upper shape has a circular element at the top of it and at the bottom of it, whereas these lower shapes have this line that goes all the way across. So, do those circles make this piece harmonious? There's definitely variety in those shapes, right? And it happens to be the size or proportion of the shape that is different. Also, I think there's great unity in this piece. The balance in the piece from top to bottom, it's balanced probably in a more informal way from top to bottom. The circles are bigger and less various, whereas the arches or circles on the top are smaller and more various. So that would be called informal balance. Where if you struck it right down the middle and looked at it side to side, there you could draw that middle line where there would be equal amounts of both things. So that would be formal balance. So there are subsets to all of these things, or more information about all of these things. But, these arches that are kind of negative space, they're varied. There's variety in them, all right? But they're also all circles. So that space that's created by that circle, that's delineated by the line, which is ultimately an arc, or half of a circle is a shape. There's unity in that piece there. So the way that you can tie these words together, further, when you repeat a shape like that and you create this idea of rhythm, right, by repetition, it's a function of time. You could look at the bottom as like a whole note because it's this big arch, and then this is still a longer note, but then they get smaller because there's like more of them. So that repetition really, really speaks to time. All of these things are there. All of these things come into play, but it's really your vocabulary and how you can link these things together. Later on, if you're working in the design industry, the art industry, the architecture industry, graphic design, any of that, you have to sell your ideas. You might find yourself on a team. Maybe you're the person that can put all these words together that helps sell the ideas. As part of this class, your final is going to be about, part of your final is going to be about how do you link this vocabulary together, all right? So also, we have another assignment coming up that has to do with repetition and variety. And again, I would argue that repetition creates a rhythm, right? If you look at the repetition of this form, we're going to make some really simple molds when that assignment comes to us, and then we're going to repeat those forms to set up a rhythm, right? If you look at these works as a whole, there is some unity in them because they are kind of arranged objects that are the same and repeated. So they're unified. There's variety. You might say that there is some emphasis in these based on color or based on position, right? But anytime we repeat a form, a shape, or a line, there is rhythm there, and that speaks to time. I think in that car video, although I'm pretty certain that there is a certain line that's repeated on that car many, many times, which of course line plays into shape, those two things together play into form. So there's this repetition on the fender, on the door, on the back, on the top, right? The top above the windows. All those lines are kind of similar, and they kind of create a rhythm throughout the car and movement, right? That car has a lurching forward movement kind of approach to it. So really think about how you can tie these words together, right? So it's not just about mentioning a principle or mentioning an element. It's about tying these things together, all right?